This is the sound of redemption. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. Igniting the fire within you. Exalting the melody of freedom. These are the things that will bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Down, down, down.
Let me tell you, it's in the air. Joy is in the air. Love is in the air. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Don't sleep on it, brother. You might get left, sister. Can you feel it? What it feel like? Freedom. What it feel like? Justice. No need to be counted, cause I am down. Down, down, down. Down, down, down. Down for the end of racism, for the end of bigotry, cause I am down. For the end of misogyny, that's right. For all the isms out there, just down, down, down. Let's bring it down. Rise up, people. No more foolishness, and let's bring it way down.
Riding the river of change into the cries of contrition. This is the way that we bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. We are the children of Eden, dancing and celebrating freedom. We are the ones that must bring it down. Down, down, 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 down. So gather the faithful. Tell everyone to stand and shout loud. Shout loud. Shout loud. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it down, down. Let's bring it down. Let's bring it way down. Let's bring it down. We've got to bring it down. Down. Stand up and shout. Stand up and shout. Rise together.
Accountability starts now. The Eric Dawson Radio Show.
Yeah. Rise up. Stand up, shouting loud.
If you are not prepared to come to that table and to represent that voice, don't come. Because we don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't need Muslims that don't want to be a Muslim voice. We don't need queers that don't want to be a queer voice. And if you're worried about being marginalized and stereotyped, please don't even show up.
See,
I love that.
well, you know what I love about it, Vincent? Um, they say if you're afraid of being stereotyped, if you're afraid of being marginalized, if you're afraid of being radicalized, if you're afraid of being mischaracterized, if you're afraid of any of those things, don't show up. Because make no mistake about it, when you come to this fight, it's a contact sport. You know, and in the fight, Vincent, it's not just, people say it's for the community. Well, see, that's abstract, right? When we say community, because we don't like put names and faces to the community. It's just a community. But when you put names and faces to things, then it becomes more real. Somebody called me today, and because they were reading, and I'm not going to go into the post. I know that people are dialed in and tuned in and waiting for me to rehash, some posts that were put up last night, and the motive behind them and all that kind of stuff. I've shared with people offline, the motive behind them and why things are happening. But what folks that I spoke to talked to me about is they say, Eric, it's crazy because I have family members who have underlying conditions. They say, Eric, it's crazy because I have family members who have died because they contracted COVID-19. They had underlying conditions and I couldn't visit them in the hospital. I have friends and classmates and other people, and so they were putting names and faces to this battle that we're having, this propaganda war that's being waged against our community for selfish purposes. And for me, and I've not talked about it much, Vince. I mean, we talk about, my daily, battle with, different things that I'm dealing with. But, one of the reasons, here, I'm showing my mask, that I wear my mask, is because I am extremely susceptible. Because in my operation, not only did they completely remove my stomach, but they also removed my spleen, right? Which makes me more susceptible to infection, right? And so when I hear, keep it with me, guys, for you all who tuned in want to hear what I got to say. So I'm going to keep it with me. So when I know that I am more susceptible to infection, you better believe I'm reading all of the information. It's not bullshit to me. It's my life. And so I read all of the information. I'm well informed, right? And so if you want to have a debate on the issues, the call-in number is always there. I don't screen phone calls. I don't hang up on people unless there's profanity, because we have young people who listen to the show sometimes, right? So we try to keep it clean. Unless there's arguing beyond being able to, to hear, right? But outside of that, a disagreement and a debate on the issues, I'm always open to. Call-in number is 908-481-5499. You don't have to hide behind a Facebook post. You don't have to do that. You call in. Call in. See. I did a show and I had the CEO of Rutgers Hospital on, right? And he said, call in. Let's answer these questions. But nobody called in. The phone didn't ring, Vincent, the entire 2 hours. The entire 2 hours, the phone didn't ring one time. Right? There was another time I had Lori Endicott Thomas on, and I had another guest on. The phone didn't ring. See, so, you can go and cherry pick what you want to be facts that you want to share out to people in order to persuade them on your side. But those are your facts. Those aren't the facts. Those are the facts that you are now equipped with to go and try to sell whatever the story is you're trying to sell. I'm saying, let's have this straight up, honest discussion. This straight up, honest discussion around all of these things. Around this idea, this ludicrous idea that wearing a mask can kill you. Now, let me take that back. Let me take that back. I would imagine that somebody who had some, and I'm not a doctor, but I'm sure that there are some underlying conditions, right? Some underlying condition that could bring about one's demise if wearing a mask, right? So I'm not going to say that it would never happen. I'm saying that the way that it's being promoted is that people would be dropping like flies, and so you shouldn't wear a mask, right? So I'm not going to say that it is impossible. I'm saying the probability of it occurring is so infinitesimal that to make it the issue of the day in the middle of this pandemic is disingenuous. Right? That's what I'm saying.
Eric, you're being a little bit too politically correct. And there are
but you know what? And you can phrase it any way you want to phrase it, Vincent. But what I'm trying to do, right, is not so much about being politically correct, but not be a distraction to the information, right? Not provide fuel to a out of control, senseless flame that otherwise could and should be extinguished, so that folks in the community are not distracted and they could focus on saving their lives and the lives of their friends and loved ones.
Eric, you are fighting a fight that has been going on since the beginning of time. And you're fighting a fight of truth versus the lies. See, and you have to look at a few things. Let's dissect this for a moment. The big reason that they don't call in or come on the show is because they know they're telling a lie. They know that it's bullcrap. They know that they're putting people in harm's way. Yet when you have the experts to go up against their fake facts and their cherry-picked and altered information, their disinformation and misinformation, they don't call because they don't want to be exposed as a liar. They want to keep their status in the community because they've got these people following them.
Well,
they want to keep their money from these people who are paying them to spread all of this disinformation. They're not going to go face-to-face with you. They're not going to go toe-to-toe with you. But, and here's the sad thing about it. They are making money and being placed on top this leadership position, and they're leading people to their deaths.
So here's the thing, and I was asked, which I thought was a ludicrous, right? And I thought that it was more maximum sophisticated confusion. If I'm being paid to promote a vaccine, right? No. And so we're clear, right? And one of the things that I realized, Vincent, probably back in 2013. So I created my Facebook page in 2012. And there's been an evolution if you watch the posts from 2012 to now. and then when I started the live, if you watched the live 4 years ago to now, and understanding how the serpents, aka Negro whisperers, aka slave catchers, work in the black community, right? It is masterful the way that they work. And what you have to be prepared to do if you're going to confront them is you literally have to be prepared to put your life out there, right? Just put it all out there so that they have nothing to grasp at, right? So there are no innuendos, there are no there's nothing hidden, right? So it's just all out there, because they'll try to create something that doesn't exist in order to cast some some doubt about your authenticity in terms of where you stand when it runs in opposition of what it is that they're trying to accomplish. So the question became, well, are you getting paid? Well, when they asked that question, because we challenged that folk who are pushing this are getting paid, right? And so the question was asked in defense of them. Well, you must be getting paid. And I think that the person who posted that knows that I'm not, right? But just in case you don't,
they put it out there
right,
to discredit you.
Well, they put it out there to create confusion in the marketplace. That's what they did, right? And so no, I'm not getting paid. I have no motive outside of trying to save Black Americans in particular, right? I wouldn't save everybody. I don't want to see anybody die from complications having caught COVID-19, right? But particularly Black Americans, I'm concerned about based on the data, right? And so having these discussions about it is based on the data. And look, so. And so here's the other thing. The question wasn't asked when I was challenging the environmental concerns that I had regarding the water in Newark, right, and the water in urban communities. Nobody said to me, "Hey, Eric, are you getting paid by somebody on that end, to go after the?" Nobody asked that question, right? They accepted that, I was leveraging the platform, and however many people listen, if there are 5 people and I can convince one, that's plenty for me, right? So I don't do the show for numbers. I don't do the show for ratings. In fact, you'll notice the ads that I was promoting, and I was just promoting, Diane and some local friends, trying to promote Black businesses before it became fashionable for folks to put up Facebook pages to say that they were supporting Black businesses because Black Lives Matter, right? I was doing it on the thing, but I even took those down because I just wanted it to just be a conversation every day. So if there are 2 people who tune in, that's fine with me. Maybe those 2 people, maybe what they call the butterfly effect, right? So maybe it'll reverberate somewhere down the line. That's my hope. But no, I'm not getting paid. My motive is simply to try to help save lives. Now, I challenge on the other side to ask that same question. And let's have the honest conversation about it. So there was some hurt feelings yesterday because I spoke about how when preparing to do a show, depending upon the audience that you're trying to engage, how you prep for the show. And not only how you prep for the how you prep the show, but how you prep the hosts for the show. And so, I was called I don't remember the exact term, but that, I was disrespectful and that demeaning because I spoke about how one's attire abruptly changed on this particular platform that they're now co-hosting and spreading misinformation, and who the people are who support that platform and that broadcast. And I said yesterday, and I think it is true, that they said, look, this is our platform. It is a professional platform. We're attempting to attract these kinds of people because this kind of money could be available to this movement if we're able to generate X number of eyeballs. And so we have to package it and present it in this way. And so ergo, the change in hairstyle and the change in attire. Now, that's not disrespectful. That's like me being smart about understanding marketing. Right? So to point out the obvious and then to be told, well, you're being disrespectful for pointing out the obvious is just kind of ridiculous, right? So I want to get past that and say, it is what it is. Acknowledge it. Just freaking acknowledge it. Like, going through these motions of trying to explain the obvious is just a waste of time. So that's what it is. And if you disagree with it, the call-in number is 908-481-5499. I mean, damn it. Call in.
I dare you.
Yeah, call in. I understand packaging, marketing. Why do you think hairstyles and makeup and clothes, all of those things are chosen in broadcast? Even the way that I have my setup now, it is not happenstance. It is intentional, right? And the intent was to say, you know what? I want to come out of a studio look because this shit is real serious. So I want to be at the dining room table and I want to be right in your face. So yes, this was intentional that I'm doing it like this. Everything is intentional. It's not by mistake. So for you to want me to believe or to at least carry on and share the lie that, okay, I'm not going to pay attention to the fact that the hairstyles change and the clothing is changed and the lighting and the background and the in the bottom third and all of the other things that go, the accoutrements, right, that go along with this broadcast, that it doesn't exist. No, it exists, and it was put there for a reason. It was to make it look more authentic, right, more genuine, more polished, right, to attract eyeballs, to attract money. So I said it. And it's important, much like, we talk about the Trojan horse, and I've talked about this on previous shows, that enters into the gate of our community and unleashes the enemy that is hidden within its belly. Gotta be careful, people. Gotta be watchful. You got to be watchful.
Well, Eric, the phone has not rung.
It hasn't rung. It won't ring, Vincent. It won't. But the other thing is this, and it is the big dilemma. And on the way into the bakery this morning, 1:30 in the morning with my cousin, I asked him this question, and it is the dilemma. If somebody shot, God forbid, if somebody shot a loved one of yours, you would want people to turn in the person who shot them, right? If your relative was the one who shot the loved one of somebody, would you turn your loved one in? That is the great dilemma, right? So you have a situation where we say we have a responsibility to our community, right? But we really don't own it. And we've talked about this on the show, how family members harbor criminals. They know they are drug dealers, gang members. They harbor weapons in the home, right? They do all of this stuff. And meanwhile, we sit and say, we got to change the community. I remember maybe 3 years ago, Vincent, I did a show, and I had a district leader call in. And she actually said it on the show. She said that she told her, I believe she said it was her nephew, that he couldn't sell drugs in her district. Not that he couldn't sell drugs, but in her district. So he had to go down the street. Don't you understand this? Right? So I said, well, so wait a minute. So you want to clean up your district. You don't want to clean up the city. You just want your district clean. This is the dilemma, right? So you're not going to tell on your nephew, right? But would you tell on somebody who wasn't your nephew selling drugs? Would you call the police on somebody else, but just not your nephew? Right? And so if that is the code, if that's the code, then we have a major problem. Like, when does it become a situation where we say, look, we are the protectors of our community, right? We have, and I don't know the answer. I'm asking the question. When do we do that? Like, or do we? Or is the standard, like I said, the standard is, I will tell on your family member, but I won't tell on mine. Right? I'll tell on all these other people. I'll complain about all these other people, but not mine.
Yes. You are talking about the societal hypocrisy of the game, which is basically called cronyism. Cronyism exists when you have a 6 degree of separation between a bad actor, yet your moral values that you condemn or give total damnation to someone else doing the same action, but someone in your degree of influence or circle of influence or connection, you do not. You turn a blind eye. Big problem that we have right now with the COVID-19 is cronyism. The president did something wrong. He covered it up. So instead of all those people who are his advisors, his trumpeteers, the congressmen and senators that are supposed to be his allies, rather than them pulling on his coat, having a conversation with him about making this right and following science, what do? They all double down in cronyism. Yeah, it's okay to open up your community. Yeah, let's open up the schools. Yeah, let's do this. And when you don't, like, okay, the CDC director went before Congress and basically told them straight up, listen, we won't have a vaccine until almost 2022 to vaccinate everybody. He also said that you've got an 80% chance of not catching COVID virus by wearing your mask than you do with the vaccine. Went against the president. The president turned around and kneecapped him.
Yeah.
The problem that we have right now in our society is that we have people who are into that cronyism, because here is the big thing about cronyism. Cronyism isn't based upon loyalty, except for there are a few people who are poor and loyal, but they're not loyal to the person as much as they're loyal to what this person can do for them.
Well, but let me ask you a question. This whole thing, right? This code of loyalty. Like, how far does it extend? right? So I'm loyal. What does that mean? So I involve myself in some illegal activity. You tell me you're loyal. Does that mean you covered up? You hide? You like what? Like, you see, I think that these are issues in
Probably.
that we deal with, right? And we see it at the national level. We certainly see it. I'm sorry, at the world level, right? We see it at the world level. We see it at the national level. We see it at the local level, right?
We see it in our own home.
We see it in our own homes, right? Where there's this loyalty that and like, what does it mean? What does it really mean? Does it mean that you will do anything? Anything? Absolutely anything? Is there nothing off limits when you're loyal?
Well, let's look at the cronyism or the loyalty and hypocrisy. People will not turn in, family members. We've got incest and rape in different families. I was on a show 3 years ago where they were talking about, the uncles and why they didn't go to Thanksgiving dinner with the family, because the uncles were raping the children. But rather than turning them in, they just didn't go to the Thanksgiving dinner. We look at, people that are doing nefarious business activities, yet because they're bringing in money and giving people $1 here and there, they don't turn them in. They don't report them. And they'll hide their weapons, their drugs, and everything. Loyal to it. Yet at some point in time, there's a moral center that I'm hoping attacks everybody, that they want to do what's fundamentally right for everyone. The biggest right you can do is not cover up, is not side with people that you know are wrong, but express the truth. Speak truth to power. When we can get to that, that's when we bring about some fundamental changes. Biggest problem that they have with drug dealers in the neighborhood is because the drugs is actually an income. People use it like a job. And that people are afraid of losing their money. The biggest problem that we have with these anti-vaccine people and these no-mask wearing people is that somebody with a level of influence is giving them something or promising something to do this bad action. Yet, just like the family member who couldn't turn in their uncle because he's their family and their uncle, it's allowed. At some point in time, people have to gain a moral center and stop selling their soul to the devil and just basically do something right. I mean, we're not, Eric, we're not talking about people cutting off their arm or sacrificing their firstborn. All we're saying, wear a mask. If people want to take the vaccine trials, don't stand in their way. Isn't that all you're saying?
That's all I'm saying, Vincent. And I'm saying, look, I'm gonna share the information that I get from credible people to try to aid in the decision making of folks in our community. Right? I'm going to share that information. And if the information I share is challenged, right? Or there's an attempt to discredit it, I am going to work hard to, one, try to figure out where the information that is being used to try to discredit is coming from, the validity of it, the source. Look to have conversation about it, and then through ferreting through it all, present to those interested the newfound information, right? Either that says, what these folks are presenting to rebut this is fake news, right? Or maybe there might be some information that could be useful. But my intent is to try to find it, right? But in the middle of
Get
that,
ready for this, Eric, when you do that. Yeah, get ready for this. Because once again, you're standing in the way of people making money. So you are now prepared for the pushback. Part of the pushback is because they're too much of a coward to talk to you face to face. They have other people talk to you. They sick other people on you. Now, keep in mind what they're doing. They are misrepresenting and exploiting other people for their own profit and gain. Correct?
Mm.
You know what, in the street term, you know what that action is called? It's called being a pimp. And then and people are stupid enough to let these idiots pimp them. It's just that simple, Eric. It is just that diabolical.
there's an article that I wrote. I mean, not that I wrote, that I posted. I'm sorry. In the it was actually an op-ed from New York Times. It was published on the 11th of September, and the headline, if I can find it, it's an opinion piece. It says, "We need to recruit more Black Americans in vaccine trials." All right. Let's see if I can read some of it. It says the global race is on for a vaccine to combat the coronavirus, but the question is, who will be included? To date, several companies have reached phase 3 trials for an experimental vaccine, including Moderna, Pfizer, and AstraZeneca. And CanSino, AstraZeneca, recently announced a pause. This is what you were talking about earlier, right? A pause in the process to check a complication with one participant. Despite this setback, and what was the complication, Vincent? Do you know what the complication was?
Yes, the complications are soreness at the areas of injection.
Mm-hmm.
There is, they said 4% of the people experience dizzy or nausea, but that's pretty much it.
Okay. It says, yet these trials have not met an important challenge, recruiting an appropriately diverse group of participants. Even though COVID-19 has taken a disproportionate toll on communities of color and on Black Americans in particular, drug makers approved for phase 3 trials have been slow to report the breakdown of participants. But Dr. Francis Collins, director of the National Institute of Health, told CNN that Moderna deserved a C for recruiting minorities. As of September 4th, Moderna reported 26% of study participants from communities of color, including Black or African American, Latin, American Indian, and Alaskan Natives. Granted, this is an improvement from most studies. In fact, in clinical trials overall, African American participation hovers around an abysmal 5%, despite being 13% of the U.S. population. Research participants should look like the population that would be 32% of those four groups. And Anthony Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, has called for twice that number because of how hard COVID-19 has hit them. Right, and then it goes on to say the diversity in these clinical trials creates problems, or the lack of diversity creates problems on two fronts: treatment and trust. On the treatment front, a vaccine with limited testing could have unanticipated effects on Black bodies. As with all drug trials, the impact of medication can differ significantly depending on the genetic makeup of the population. This is even more so with vaccines that depend on altering the immune system. It is therefore vital that the trials, which usually hold about 30,000 participants, include as diverse a set of participants as possible. As it is, African Americans cope with higher rates of cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and hypertension. Because these conditions can put people infected with the virus at risk, it's extra important that African Americans play a critical role in testing. Trust is also an issue, right? Unsurprisingly, Black Americans, and then we'll get into the whole Tuskegee thing, and I'm not minimizing it by not talking about it, but all of those things did happen. But there's safeguards now. There's transparency now. There are questionnaires and there are all kinds of documents and things that you have to sign for your approval, right? So by not getting involved, by them talking to folks about not participating in a trial, we are limiting the data that could help save lives. That's fact. It's not Eric's fact. The science.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's when, and you made my point perfectly. One of the biggest things of...
Oh, wait a minute, Vincent. I got something in the thread. It says thanks, Avi. It says the AstraZeneca patient experienced neurological symptoms consistent with a rare but serious spinal inflammatory disorder called transverse. Transverse myelitis. I guess that's it.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Close. Yeah, in fact, we talked about that this morning. That's the reason they stopped their trials about, 3 weeks ago. And what they're investigating is that that pre-existing condition that she had, was it stimulated by the actual vaccine, or was it caused by the actual vaccine? So, but you're looking at out of tens of thousands of trials, this is the first serious adverse reaction or side effect.
Right, and Avi also says the patient is being discharged today. So, not to minimize the side effect and what that patient experienced, but that data too, right? As horrific as it might have been for that patient to experience, that side effect, is important as they move forward with these trials, right? So, and that's why they try. It's trial and error to get it right. So, if the thought was that they would be able to, without incident, develop a vaccine, but that's not the case, right? I hope that during this whole, trial and error phase, phases of trying to develop a vaccine to save our lives, I hope that nobody loses their life. But that may be the price to pay to save millions of lives. Do you understand what I'm saying? But the anti-vaxxers set it up that, well, while you do this, while you go and experiment, nobody should be at risk. And that's just unreasonable.
Right. Well, medicine, of course, that's why they call it practicing medicine, because you never get it perfect. They're in the system of trial and error. But it's also one of those things where you have to understand that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the one. With these anti-vaccine people and all these Negro whisperers are saying the needs of the one outweigh the needs of the many. What Donald Trump is saying is that the need of the one outweighs the need of the
what they're saying is my need outweighs. That's right. So let's not. Right, my need outweighs everybody else's. My need.
That's right. I need a new car. I need to keep looking ghetto fabulous. I need, new clothes. I got to get the hair did, and of course, got to turn my girl into a superstar. So my needs outweigh the needs of everybody else. So all of y'all die because I got needs. So, once again, you see the actions and the mindset of a pimp. And these stupid people who are letting him pimp them. I
Yeah.
can't. Yeah, and I want to keep it, polite, politically correct, because I got people in my church who get on me about that because I share the show.
Well, so what I would say again is this, guys. If you have questions, I'm not even suggesting you look for me for the answers, right? Because I'm not a doctor, I'm not an expert. But what I will say to you is this: I have no ulterior motive, right? I have no selfish motive. I do have an ulterior motive, and that is to save Black Americans' lives, right? But like the CEO at Rutgers Hospital said, put your comments or questions in the feed. I'm going to share that show again. And, I know people said it was hard to hear. I'm going to see if I can get somebody to mess with the audio to bump it up, and then I'll repost that show. But put your questions in the feed, and I will contact him and direct him to that feed so that he can answer the questions. But if you have questions, you should ask them. On both sides, right? You should. I don't think anybody. I can't speak for the anti-vaxxers because in that cult-like setting, they don't want you to ask questions. They want you to, they bully you into just following, what they say, right? Or they're gonna talk about you, right? Or they're gonna call you stupid or call you dumb and call you a bunch of other names.
Call you disrespectful.
Call you disrespectful.
Or you're a disloyal friend.
So, but
hey, you ain't black.
But my thing is this: on this side, at least on this show, I'm saying, yeah, ask the question, and then we'll go get the answer. Ask another question, we'll go get the answer. You keep asking questions, we'll bring on experts. We'll do that. I've got a line of people who said, listen, I'm willing to come on. So if you've got questions, if you're concerned about it, genuinely concerned, ask questions. But your decisions, will either put lives at risk or help save lives. I mean, that's what's in the balance. You have that power, right? You not wearing a mask, you have the power to infect a person and snuff out a life. You have that power. Or you have the power to, based on information, put your mask on. Protect yourself and protect others, and possibly save lives.
Well, let's challenge it like this, Eric, if I could. Now, these people are supposedly putting out this information about not getting the vaccination or take the trial, about not wearing the mask, because they're in the interest of bringing out the quote-unquote truth based on the facts in which was given to them. Yet, shouldn't their facts be measured and weighed up against the science and data that we have? Shouldn't it be able to stand the cross-examination of truth? Should we be able to compare an apple to an apple? No, they don't do that. Why? Because when you put them up against the experts, they are exposed as the frauds that they are. A pimp don't mind whooping a hose behind, but yet up against another man, he's a coward.
Hello, caller. Hello, caller.
Good morning, Eric. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. This is Jody.
Hey.
Good morning, Jody. Good morning, Vincent. Rough day on the Eric Dawson show. Yeah, it is. So, first, remember, Eric, when I was talking to you last week about how uncomfortable I was feeling, about how cantankerous these subject matters are getting amongst friends, and, you know, you don't want to, like, fight with anyone or break what you thought were relationships. So now you're in my space. Look at you. Look at me and you, right? Because Eric tried to make me feel better. You know, he said, Jody, you know, you gotta keep to what you believe in.
You do.
And,
You do.
You gotta do it.
You have to.
Right? They complicate so many situations, and I am and this is, so let's have a back to Jesus moment. I am really big on like loyalties and relationships. I've been through so much that I am very cognizant of what is real loyalty and what is real relationship. I had to become very raw about that with myself because, you know, some things just aren't relationships as you see them or perceive them. Because and I don't even know the details of the situation and kind of don't want to know, right? But the basic point is, if we can't disagree, right? And that does not, and no, or if we disagree, and my loyalty is questioned for a disagreement, then something's wrong with that relationship. Because we have to be able to disagree in this space. That's what this space is. And like you said, Eric, it's not for the faint at heart. Right?
It's not.
It is wicked, and guess what? And we are all, if you have any sense of how it works and what it does, we will all get down into the dirt for our issue. We are like, this is what it is. That's the one point. What I have a problem with the anti-vax movement, right, is, so I'm not, for full disclosure, I'm not going to take a vaccination for COVID. Just not, right? I don't take, not even lie, I don't take a flu vaccination. That's not to say I've been anti-vax. My children have been vaccinated. I also have people in my family, my brothers, who have children that have not been vaccinated and are grown people because they were anti-vaccination back in the day. It's not anything new. Here's my problem with the anti-vaccination movement that makes them not a legitimate source for any people, and especially black people. I now, because I got into it, I now have gone through your friends' pages, your friends' pages, and I'm going to be very honest, the white people that I are on your pages that are so strong in the movement, and what you'll find in the anti-vaccination movement is, although the President of the United States is trying to get a vaccination before he gets an election, do you notice they never talk about Donald Trump? That makes me frenzy. Like, that makes me, I need to question you, no matter who you are, whether you're my good friend or my brother or my sister. I have to question, why do you not attack Trump for saying he wants to rush this vaccination? Irregardless of what the argument is and the movement in itself, right? Because if you're just anti-vaccination and the President of the United States is moving to have a vaccination for his political career, right? And you say nothing adversarial about him, then I have to question the legitimacy of your movement, right? If you will not say anything derogatory on your page about anything someone does, if John Lewis says, when you see something wrong, you have to say something. If you don't say something...
But here's the question I want to ask you, Jody, here's the question I want to ask you, right? Because I haven't delved into those pages, but you know what? This weekend, I might get myself... Yeah, I may get myself a jar of pomegranate juice and just spend some time in these pages. But the question I want to ask you is this. So, I mean, are they apolitical? So I get that they're not.
No. They are pro makes it illegitimate, right? Not that I'm an anti-Trumper, right? But when you are ADOS, right? You don't have a space you stick in. You go against anybody that is against ADOS, right? That's what you fight for. You made it perfectly clear what your stance is on your issue. So if I am doing something not for money, or that we all get paid, but everybody gets paid, right? So we don't want anyone not to get paid for what they do. That's not even my issue. My issue is, if this is your drive, if it is your love for your community and you're trying to do something social, some social justice and get paid, that's your hustle, and I'm not mad at it. Just keep it to that space. If that's what it is, then whoever drives against that force, you're against them. That is an organization I figured out, and I don't care what anybody says. This is what it is. Okay. It's an organization that has a lot of money in it, right? But most of the benefactors of that movement are Trump supporters, are Republicans, are people with lots of money, right? So even though Trump is, because even this is where black people, I feel like we get so used in a process, right? At the top of the anti-vax organization is a lot of heavy donors, just like we talk about against the Democrats and we talk about against the Republicans. It is also very structured as a political organization. So it is not allowed to talk about Donald Trump because most of the people that give to that organization also give to Donald Trump. And Donald Trump doesn't talk about the anti-vax organization either. He's right now pumping that he's going to create a vaccination prior to the November 3rd election, 40 some odd days away, but he does not say, and the anti-vaccination movement should shut the hell up. No, that is an organization together. That's why no one talks about Trump. They don't say anything about anyone except for Joe Biden and the Democrats. They are very open on their pages to have that political argument, who is someone who's saying we need to wait for a vaccination. That's Joe Biden's opinion. We need to wait till it's safe. But your dude that you won't say anything about on your social media platform is saying, I want one next week, and I don't care who it kills. There's something wrong with that. And black people, just because someone's fighting for you doesn't mean they have your interest at heart. They're just for legitimacy in our community, because if Moderna is something that Trump says every day, that's the study in Newark that they're saying they don't want to happen and black people shouldn't take it, but they won't say. And Donald Trump needs to stop putting money into it, federal funding into it, and testing on black people. When you leave that little section out of your argument, and you don't give the full breadth of an argument, and you have a self-interest, and everyone has a right to question that self-interest. That's just fair.
Right.
So I'm disappointed that what I was fearing last week, that we made it into this space, well, it will destroy relationships, and it will destroy and put people on opposites of the line. I think that, what you're saying is true for the sense of sensibility. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Get on this show, talk about it. We have a relationship bigger than what you're doing and what I'm doing. So let's try to make it right for this community, because if it's something that someone knows that I don't know, I want to know that.
Yeah. So I want to say, and I want to apologize to people, and I want to try to push you guys over to YouTube, because like some crazy funky stuff is happening on Facebook right now. Like literally, Jody, we had no issue, and I'm suspect of both platforms, right? Facebook and YouTube. But as soon as we started talking about these anti-vaxxers and the relationship with Donald Trump and all that kind of stuff, like literally my video is going wacky, and I'm literally sitting right above my router, Like it is right here. So and I've got a strong connection everywhere except on Facebook right now. So I apologize, guys, but jump over to YouTube and maybe it'll be clear. But literally, it's just in and out right now. So
That's a real conversation. That's a real conversation.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But you know what? I think that and Vincent and I asked this question, and you kind of alluded to an answer a little while ago, Jody. When we talk about loyalty, right? I think of you. In terms of their understanding of loyalty, I don't even want to say it's unreasonable, right? It's just downright wrong. Like
they're only friends when they can use you, profit from you, or gain something from you. Or see the bastardization of loyalty. Let me put it to you this way. My wife loves me. She is loyal to me. She is loyal to me in spite of my faults. Yet when I do make a mistake, she is one of the first people to step up and correct me. Because she loves me and she's loyal to me. See, the bastardization of loyalty is that I make a mistake and you are loyal to me, so you cover it up. Or you ignore it.
And you know something else? I don't think that we should have... listen to this crazy theory. What I've learned is relationships made in the political arena should never be considered those relationships, because that's just honestly, if that whole little scenario of in politics there's no permanent enemies and no permanent friends has always made me very uncomfortable, and that's why I haven't done well in it, right? Because if I meet you and I'm aligned with you and I believe in you, I am very infamous. That's why I had to leave the damn city. I am very infamous for, but if I see some shit you do, I'll call you out just like I will that other dude.
There you go.
That's who I am. And I have children, so I'm never selling my soul. I'm just never doing that, because I want to be able to say to my children, even I've said this to my daughter, in the darkest hour, I said to my daughter, we don't have anything, but in this house, we practice justice every day. We do not, I will take the loaf of bread half empty before, and I'm no martyr. I just, not for some regular old person, right? Like, I believe I can say this too in this conversation. I was one of the biggest supporters of Cory Booker. I love that he was good at the sport of politics, that he could walk in a room and quote the Torah, the Torah, the Bible, the Quran. He was so well versed. He was ready. I knew he was going to go far, and I loved that space, right? And he brought to my neighborhood a school district that we needed for my children. And I believed in that, and I still believe in that to this day. He was still a politician. And so when I learned that he would do dirty things to the sewing community for money, then no, I don't support that anymore. And that in politics is like, that can go across the board as no one touch her because she's not loyal. No. I'm loyal to the movement. And you said you were part of that movement. And when I see you on outside of that movement, then I don't owe my loyalty. That's crazy. And we should just be allowed to disagree. Period. You got your thing over there. I don't agree with that. And I should be able to talk about that. Like you talk against what you don't agree with, without it becoming personal. But it's not like that in politics.
But it's interesting, right? Because we talked about it.
Agree that we disagree.
But we talked about this earlier when I said, and Vincent said that I was, being politically correct, right? So if we're gonna have the conversation about, Newark as the community that we're really kind of talking about right now, right? Well, there were a group of people who in 2014 were in support of the current mayor. The current mayor took a left turn, right, in terms of the things that he said he was going to do and what he's actually doing. And so people jumped off. Now, do we say that they're disloyal? Because that's what he said, right? He has said that these people that are not following him when he made this hard left are disloyal. Those people in turn said, no, it's not a matter of us not being disloyal. We're loyal to the community. And you broke your promise. And so now we, in being loyal to the community, always have to call you out on these issues. Now, if that is true there, right, why is it not true everywhere else? If that is the thought process that says we're all for the community, but at the point that you jump off of the focus, as Vincent said, that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one, right? Once it's understood that that's where you are, why isn't it then understood that folks are going to do to you what you are doing or have done to the mayor, to the governor, to the president, to anybody that you were in support of at one point, right? I mean,
it only goes by what groups involved. But when it was good for the group, then it was good. But when it's not good for the group, it's not good. That's what's so perpetually scary about those political structures. And that loyalty is determined by forever. Like, so we agreed for this cycle, this voting cycle, because, I'm very pragmatic, right? So I agree with you in this voting cycle. But if next voting cycle I disagree with you, then we become enemies, and you were always my enemy. Okay.
Yeah.
That's kind of how you have to think about it, and that's so wrong. This is not home. This is not my family. This is about my interest, which is always kind of sometimes adversarial to my family. But no, I don't think, Eric, that many of us, I've said this out loud before, that when you have it, that thing that makes you fight for justice, you can try to put it down. You can try to walk away from it, and it is like a fire in your belly, right? And so we won't have many people who love us and like us. And that's something a therapist told me. So you just have to learn to live with that or be different. And if you're not going to change, you have to live with that. But it's just a very lonely space because you're not trying. And you may have had your history where you were aligned politically with your dad and all that, okay? So we are all allowed to this space that you're in, where you're not fighting for alliances, you're fighting for the cause of it all. It's lonely and it is mean.
My enemy is my friend. That's politics. But in terms of the most incredible thing that I've ever heard on the show is when, Eric, you talked about your father, his position, how much money he made, yet he stood on his principle. He did not sell his soul to the devil.
Well, I'll tell you, the thing that made my father, I think, ultimately a threat to people was that as a black man who the system believed they had him, right? That, he had the prestige of being president of the Board of Education. He had the prestige of being the chief of staff to the first black mayor of, largest city, one of the largest cities in the nation. He had the prestige of being the highest ranked Muslim at that time in government, right? He had all of that. And he was making a damn good salary to take care of 7 kids. They thought they had him. So when they tried to tighten the noose, right? He said no. And they said, wait a minute, that's not what you're supposed to do. And then he said, I quit. And that scared the shit out of the entire establishment.
Yes,
and so
who cannot be compromised.
And so he said, I would rather go and clean toilets, mop floors, than to do this. And that was unheard of. And he never, I don't think he ever recovered in terms of people looking at him, like you said, Jody, and saying, you know, okay, so now we understand that you're uncompromising, right? So we don't really have this relationship, right? We have this pretense where in this situation, we may be aligned, but there is no relationship, there is no trust. And I think from that moment on, he lived the rest of his life trying to fight for a community, but always being at arm's length from the center of power, because they didn't trust him. Even when Corey came, right, which was very, very interesting. Corey came and he had no other way, and so this was the, damn it, this is what I witnessed. Every underdog, right, because they couldn't get to the center of the power, right, but the next thing to it was my dad, right? And so they had to, they didn't have the bona fides to be there, so they would come to him, and then they would give the "we got to fight the power movement" kind of thing, right? And my dad bought into that because he said we need to tear this down. So he would take on this underdog in an attempt to try to get them into the center of political power so that he can implode the system. And then those people, I don't even want to say that they got co-opted. I want to say that they were always corrupt, right? And they were just waiting for an opportunity. And so then my dad would be at square one again, right? And then he'd sit there, and then somebody would come along, and it just kind of became a pattern of how they did it. And I watched over and over, and I became frustrated at some point. And as a young kid, I think this is like therapy, Jody. I'm gonna have to give you $125 after. But I watched it, and
you know I'm still waiting for my flowers.
Yeah, man, I gotta give you guys some. But this is why I believe I left Newark, because I was like, this shit is crazy, like over and over and over again. And I used to not argue with him in a disrespectful way, but I would say, Dad, why do you keep doing it? And he said, son, you can't live a completely cynical life. You have to believe in something. You have to believe in some people, right? And so it was that about him that people took advantage of. And I left. I said, I gotta go make a life for myself. I'm gonna get out of this political stuff. And I even told him, I said, I can't help you get involved in that. And then his shining star, where he thought he finally had done it, was when Corey came, and like you said, Jody, no better politician to work a room, to tell a story, to do all that stuff, right? And so he came from Harrington Park, and he did a job on my dad and convinced my father, and so my father bought into it, and almost instantaneously with him being elected there. And I think I told you guys a story of how on Springfield Avenue, where he had his office when he was elected councilman, during his entire campaign, there were only black people who were coming in and out of that office. But the day of the election, after I had gone canvassing with about a half dozen people that my dad asked me to go canvassing with in the Central Ward, when we returned back to the headquarters, I saw across the street in what was an empty lot, Jaguars and Mercedes Benzes and BMWs, and I'm like, what the hell? And then there were like dozens, hundreds of black people standing outside the headquarters, pouring down and up Springfield Avenue. I made my way through that crowd, knocked on the door, and a white guy opened the door and said, "You can't come in." And I said, "But my dad's in there." And then I guess them hearing me talk, somebody said, "Oh, that's Sharif's son. Let him in." And they let me in. I walked in. There were all white people in there. So instantaneous with him being elected, he brought in that power structure, right, that guided him through the rest of his time there in Newark and dictated exactly what kind of politician he was going to be and how he was going to shit all over Newark. And it broke my father's heart. Broke his heart. And that's why and then Corey sold him again, and so my father, came back and said, "Okay, you know what? You're gonna do this," and so he helped him become mayor. And then that, it was like creating a monster. And then, it was like the guy was unrecognizable. And my brother is probably gonna kill me for this. But who quits in the height of a person like Corey's career, where Corey is like, as a councilman, he's like gaining national headlines. He is like owning national headlines. My brother was his chief of staff and quit. He quit. He said, "I can't do this." Who does that? I mean, that you have to be so reprehensible, so repugnant.
Yeah.
And he quit. My brother quit. He said, "I can't do this." He felt dirty. Now I know I'm gonna get a call from him because he didn't like me. But I looked at that and I was like, when I found out, I was like, yo, was it that bad? I mean, think about it. He could, if he played the game. And see, so for people who say, oh, the Sharifs and whatever, they play whatever, he could be in Washington right now, making a name for himself, raking in tons of money. He could be doing that, like so many others who are leeches on Corey's back.
The Bible in Proverbs, it says, I would rather be a doorkeeper at the house of my God than to dwell in the tents of wickedness. I would rather clean toilets than to be the chief of staff of the most dirtiest politician in the world. Your dad and your brother happen to be some of the bravest people that I know, because they're standing on their principle and they are true to their conviction to helping the community. Yet you back these people who are good liars. Corey is one of the smoothest liars that I've ever talked to. But yet he will say one thing to you and then turn around and stab you in the back. Let's face it for what it is. Politics, they call it the blood sport, and they ain't kidding.
Yeah.
It is. It's rough.
It is rough. And so, look.
But the worst politics that we deal with is the politics in our society. We have people who are getting money, they stick with it.
Yeah. So.
Dirty about it, that I'm not a politician. Eric, you're not a politician, are you?
Nope.
Are you a politician?
Nope.
And that's who gets the lash. So in most cases, that I realize is that, it's the person that is trying to work with the political structure. People that are trying to fight for the better of the community. And all we have to work with is that political structure. So someone comes along, they give you this story, you go for it, and this is the one who's going to change my neighborhood. He's going to change my community, and then we get smashed because I'm not a politician. I'm someone that believes in believe in the dreams, honestly, of my forefathers. So yeah, I feel like if Martin Luther King died for me, if Malcolm X died for me, then I have a responsibility that no, I'm not them. I couldn't even imagine knowing that I'm going to die for something. But I definitely have to live and walk that dream that he died for through, right? That's impossible to do in politics. I remember my brother saying to me a long time ago, "You are not
impossible, but difficult."
Yeah, he said, "Jody, you're not a politician. You're a community activist. You're not a politician." He tried to convince me of that because he knew that that was going to be the end of me in the city of North. And he was so right with that. And he didn't think that I was ready for that. Honestly, the only best thing that ever happened to me, right? Because I still get to look at myself in the mirror. And most people who do not like me, they fear me still. And that's good enough for me if I'm doing what I feel is the good work. I feel like this is the good work. I feel like when I go against what I know is going to lose people in my life because I believe that, and I'm not going to give that up. No effing body, right? That I'm still on the good side of me. I get to look at myself in the mirror, and people don't really
sleep good at night.
Yeah, I get on my knees. I make a lot. I make prayers by my bed. I pray all day long because I believe in something, and it makes it easy for me to pray to my God every day. And not
right.
many people can do that. And I think that, I honestly, Eric, I was scared to call this morning because, you know, we have relationships, right? And I wish that it was better. I wish that could resolve itself because that would mean that I didn't make a mistake. You didn't make a mistake. They didn't make a mistake. But they were real legitimate people working together in a space for something better. Other than that, this is just, you know.
Right. So here's the deal for me, right? And I think that we have an opportunity to own our own space. So I'm authentic in who I am, and all I can do is control who I am. Right? So I'm authentic. So if I tell you that I love you, if I tell you that I care about you, then that's truthful. How you receive that, what you do with that, I cannot control. Right? So I put it out there, and it becomes whatever it becomes. Right? But what I love, and I said this to Vincent before the show, what I love, Jody, is that who Eric Dawson is well documented. It's well documented from 2012 to now. 8 years. Right? 8 years. Well documented. You can go back and look at the origin of my page, which it was founded on trying to bring justice to the city of Newark when Cory Booker was trying to install Shanique Spates as a councilwoman illegally on the council, right? That was the day I started this page, right? And so from that day to now, right, I have, whether you agree with me or not, right, I have stated very openly my thoughts and my opinions. And for those who fought vehemently against me, and I lost a lot of friendships in 2014, right?
Yeah.
And many of those people have come to realize that that guy that they stood up and defended, who's the mayor of Newark now, that he wasn't what they said, what they thought he was, right? And so some of those relationships have been repaired, right? And some haven't been. But now here we are again, where we're at I'm at a crossroads when trying to do what I believe is right for the community, and that is to share accurate information to help save lives, and to dispel inaccurate or fake news, right, in order to extinguish its power in the community. And it's being met with a force that says either you allow us to propagate this falsehood, or you don't have a relationship with me, right? So, yeah, that's pretty deep.
Adam. That Satan is now before you and giving and holding out in front of you the apple. You want to take a bite? That's what they're saying to you.
And you know what? And here's the thing. I pray every day, and this is the truth. This is the God's honest truth. That somehow these folk got duped. That somehow, like, it's not intentional. Like, you know, the better part of me says it is, but I'm holding out, like, hope that, like they'll read something and they'll go, oh man, I didn't really realize this. Oh, let me go and apologize. You know, let me go make amends. Let me go and, you know, repair, you know, all this damage that I've done and I'm doing. Yeah, I mean, that's my hope. That is my hope.
Eric, first of all, you are correct. It is intentional. The biggest thing that I find when doing Christian counseling, especially marriage counseling, is that when people are faced with infidelity, you know what they say? My clothes just fell off. No, nobody's clothes just fell off. It takes intent to get naked to fornicate. It takes intent. You know what you're going into when you're in a compromising situation, but you decide, like Adam, I'm going to take a bite. That's the whole thing. And I applaud people who pass that test, who do not compromise their morals and their integrity for coins or what they think that they're going to get.
But I tell you, you know, you gotta understand though, right? Because, and Jody, you know, right? Newark, as big as it is, it's like the biggest small town ever, right?
Yeah.
And like literally, it's a massive city, but it's like Mayberry. It's like Mayberry. You know, I could be anywhere and say I'm from Newark, and then if you have a conversation long enough, you know mutual people. Right, I got to give this real. I'm not going to mention names, right? But I was at a client's dropping off some cobbler, and I get to talking, and this guy is the dad of a friend of mine's daughter, right? And so we're chatting, and then I mention a workplace that I really loved, and I'm trying to be as vague as I can. Mention a workplace that I loved, and then he said, "Oh wow, you know, I love that place too." And I said, "Yeah, you know, a relative of mine worked there." And he goes, "Really?" And then next thing you know, he knows my relative, and we know all these people. Like, you know, that's how small Newark is. So when something like this happens, it's akin to a divorce.
Oh yeah.
Right? Right, where you're now dividing up property, and by property I don't mean like, you know, houses and cars and stuff, but you're dividing up like relationships, like other people, right? Like, and people are now taking sides, like in a divorce, like, okay, so I've been friends with this person longer, and so I gotta side with it, and a lot of it is irrational, it's also emotional, right? It's like, you know, and then, you know, you start getting text messages. I'm going to speak specifically about me, getting text messages and phone calls, like, and it's this cascading effect. It's crazy to experience it. And yeah, but like I said to you, Jody, and I look in the mirror now and I give myself the same advice. You got to hold to your principles, your convictions. And you just got to do it. You just got to do it. There's too much
Well, you
at
know what's
stake.
tragic about it too, Alex, is that seriously, if we get really, really honest, that's why North is such a city place. Because that's how North does politics, right?
That's how Newark does life. It's just,
Yeah.
it's just not politics. It is,
It's your degree of influence and your connections and who you know.
yeah, but Jody, it is,
I used to argue that I didn't like North politics, not because it was so dirty, but that it wasn't really politics, right? So I'm one of those people who, even if it's a strategy that is like so ugly, I like politics, right? So I want to see it play out. I want to see smart. But so I started realizing that it was not just smart about politics, and North campaigns weren't driven on issues, and you weren't getting like these great moments or great sound bites for any media. That it was just this dirty ghetto. Get you in a hallway and threaten you that you better or pay you $15. Like, it had no savvy to it. Okay, that's not politics. And it is that way because of this situation. That's how we deal, right? Because in cities where politics burst, and I hate to make those comparisons all the time with race, but, white people have a way of, especially in their towns and cities, they don't disagree. They don't agree on everything. It's the impossibility, right? But they don't take it personal. They don't say you have to align with me or you lose your black card. They don't do that. You don't lose your white card ever. And it's never going to end. And we call it privilege, but it's just like reality, right? But in Newark or cities, and it's just not Newark. Chicago, dirtiest. They always say, oh, these are the dirtiest politics you'll ever be played. What they're not admitting is it's politics. Black people playing against black people. These are black cities, right? So when we believe in this, when we participate in that situation, we will keep getting this empty city with the people at the bottom, because none of them they don't even know. If someone just turned on your show, they don't even know what the hell we're talking about right now. But there are big, large pockets all across the city that this has gone across.
no doubt.
The Baraka camp knows about it. The this camp knows about it. They're aligning that, hey, they can't. Oh, it is ugly.
Well,
The reason why North is a failing city.
Well, so one of the other things which is very interesting about Newark, and I grew up in it, right? Newark is very much about families, right? Political families, power families, right? So you have, the Rices and the Jameses and the Bradleys and the Sharifs and the Barakas, and you go down this list of families, and the Cheneyfield Jenkins, and you go down this list of the Adebatos, right? You had these families, and then
There's too many of them. Go ahead.
yeah, but you understand what I'm saying, right? And then the families have tentacles, right? And those tentacles are typically like first degree or second degree, like outside the ring, in terms of how those families were able to influence opportunities, right? And then now those people, so now when we talk about loyalty, right, the loyalty is attached to some tangible thing that was gotten from this family, right? So now when you look, like, you just gotta look. Like, it's all like just straight there. And so you talked earlier about cronyism, Vincent, but you didn't talk about nepotism. But when you look and you see it, right, you'll see how it all played out. You see why, like, generations, right, that benefited from it, why you still have a lot of what you have in Newark.
Right.
And yeah, and yeah, it's bad. I see Diane said Facebook is the devil. No, I think that,
It is.
no, I don't know that it's a devil. Well, yeah, it is.
Ultimately, I think it is. Listen, man, we're highly emotional people, and listen, when I tell you I was broken about it, like, I don't even really post anymore my opinions. I just listen to the show, whatever. But you have these relationships, and then
No, Jody, don't do that. Don't do that.
And this is real. No, I mean, listen, this is what is good about life in general, right? I'm in a different stage, and I haven't decided that I wanted to really learn too much about the political structure here. I know who to vote for, and I'm a researcher by nature. But I'm glad to be out of that space because it's just not a nice place to be, right? So I feel a little bit that. So I don't really have much to say, but we're talking about a national election right now. This is about the presidential election. I don't care if Barack runs Newark. I don't care who the next mayor is of Newark. I'm being very honest. Not that I don't love Newark as the place I've grown, but it's just not a part of my interest, right? I need to know who the mayor of Raleigh, North Carolina, because I ain't leaving. This is my home now, and I'm loving that space. Okay, that aside. I think that it is Facebook. It becomes we're such emotionally and cocky people, and who's right and who's wrong. We can never, I think, as a community, do move forward because we are so caught up in the minutia, and we are classed in the Pharaoh people. Whether we're going to blame it on women for slavery, I don't care what it is, but I have not often been in a space, sorry that I have to say this, and I have black children. I have not often been in a space with black people where when you're smart and you're a go-getter, that people legitimately say, let's go. Black people pull that down. Everybody wants to be the chief. Nobody wants to be the Indian. No one minds ripping you a new behind on social media. The F dropping and the name calling each other niggers. Like, we are such evil people against each other. So that's why Trump's the president of the United States. That's why we still have white supremacy and not all on Trump. That's why the Democratic Party is so bad, because this is the truth. If we ever expect for people to treat us better than we treat each other, we are freaking retarded. We have lost a sense of sympathy. That doesn't even make sense. Why do I have to give you something that you won't give yourself? That's a question that anyone should ask.
Right.
That doesn't make you a racist when you say, why do we have to lift them up? We give them cities with billions and billions and billions of dollars, and they scrabble over it like animals, trying to see who's going to get the most of the buck, and leaving their own.
That's absolutely right. Leaving their own to suffer.
Crazy.
That's absolutely crazy.
That's crazy.
It is.
How are we saying that any of those families that you mentioned, sorry, how are we saying any of those families are really good, solid black families, and Newark is in the way it's been? We're talking 50 years, some of these families. We're talking 60 years, some of these families. And the poor of the poor are still poor. It gets worse every year, every decade, every fucking century. How do we say that we should applaud any of that?
Because, and this is what they do, these families that you talk about are siding with people because they increase their level of power and influence, and they continue to grow, and they get harder and harder to fight because. And here's the thing that I hate in what you're saying, and I really think you should reconsider it. Do not let these people bully you on social media. That's the whole thing, because if they bully you, they shut you down. No longer is someone...
Don't get it wrong. Eric knows. I like it for fun.
Then keep up the good fight. If it's trouble, then it's...
I'm not attached to that anymore. I don't care about what... It's not that I don't care, because I'm not even that detached. But it's not... I work every day. I have a family. I'm moving us forward. It's just the stuff with my family. Like, I have other stuff to do than to be focused on. Like, this, unfortunately, that's my whole entire social media get-up. Because that's what Eric was talking about, Facebook. I do think it's the devil because, it actually keeps me attached to that. So I know so much about it, but I just recognize, and I think that would be on most platforms, when you're a part of the political or social structure or community-based structure, that is who your audience is on social media. And we have a very bad habit of not allowing people to be, not allowing them to be adversarial. As soon as you say, I don't agree with that, people call you stupid. They say, what are you talking about? You don't know. You don't read. You're looking at too much TV. These are people that you're my friends. Like, we talk on the telephone, right?
Yeah.
The breeze, and then you're going to tell me on social media that I need to pick up a book. You know exactly who I am, right? That is crazy.
Yeah, it's a form of bullying.
Oh my God, that is how it goes.
Exactly, but when they do that, they're trying to shut down your voice because you're probably the only one in that group that's speaking the truth.
Yeah.
No. I'm not backing down. I can back this up. Can you back up your bullcrap? Give me some documented facts to support your claim, other than the simple fact that you are in line with this person and you're negotiating or politicizing for power and position.
Yeah.
No,
so look,
kiss my behind.
right.
In fact, unfriend me.
Right. So again, I mean, I just want to keep focus on like the fact that this whole thing, at stake are lives, right? Like I want to see, because it's not about me, it's not about them, it's not about it's about lives. It's about vulnerable people, like the most vulnerable in our community. Their lives are being put in harm's way, and there is a struggle that is taking place right now, and it is ripping through the black community. Not just here, right? There are other places, because those folks that you talked about, Jody, those folks have supplanted black folk in other black communities to do exactly the same thing that's being done here. Right? And which is why when you look at the numbers that I read to you earlier, in terms of black folks who are participating, black folks who are dying at who are susceptible to, right, disproportionately, all of that is happening in real time.
Or as my kids, or as my daughter used to say, in your face, they're doing this.
It's happening in real time, and so I'm concerned. I don't want to. I mean, it was sickening for me to watch, the dozens of funerals that were, shared on Facebook and YouTube, where the family couldn't come, and they just had it was horrible. And all the news that is out now about how long it's going to be before we get back to, some semblance of normalcy is frightening as well. And we get there quicker, right, if we're sharing accurate information backed by science, right?
Correct.
And then folks follow that, advice. That's how we get there. The way we stay in this danger zone is by, the sharing of misinformation, the consumption of the misinformation, and quite frankly, people not courageous enough to stand up against the misinformation and push back.
Well, you know what? Let's go on a little tangent. Let me rip apart the President of the United States for a minute real quick. But it's really just about what you're talking about, right? So what I'm beginning to be afraid of in this space is, right, so he said he was going to do this vaccination, and then, he talked about rushing it, and then, so now there's pushback. So now he's been quoted on television 3 times, I think, in the last 3 weeks. He doesn't know the word, right? Herd immunity, but we'll say herd mentality for the purposes of the orange dude in the White House. And that, so if this vaccination isn't cleared until 2021, isn't that what we're doing? If the anti-vax establishment, along with the Trumpers, let's call them Trumpers, right? Along with the Trumpers are already saying anti-mask, anti-social distancing, isn't he already establishing herd immunity? So
Yes.
I saw last night that in South Dakota and North Dakota, they were sent a document from the White House, and their numbers were less than 1% in South Dakota and North Dakota, and it mandated masks. That you tell your people that they should be wearing a mask, right? And then 2 months later, right now, South Dakota and North Dakota, their numbers have gone up, spiked tremendously. They get another note from the White House saying they don't have to mandate masks. Isn't that herd immunity?
Yes, it is. You're looking at herd immunity, and you look at the support back not wearing masks. But here's the other thing. These people who are pushing vaccination, they're only pushing it in the black communities. The white communities, they've gotten all the data that they need for the vaccination to work, to the point where they've only had one bad side effect. They're not in the white communities pushing this. They want to actually kill black people. But this isn't genocide.
So that's what herd immunity would be. That's why at the so I hate watching Trump, but I started watching because you got to watch this joker because he's a little unhinged, right? So at the town hall meeting, when they asked that question, like, what are you expecting to do? And he openly, he may have mispronounced or has a whole different definition or whatever. But listen, herd mentality, I was like, maybe that wasn't a fraudulent split. What is herd mentality, right? And what does that mean for black people is, you know that if you spread it, if you even insidiously behind a closed door, not press agendas like masks and social distancing that wouldn't cause a herd immunity, right? But that's going to be black folks that die. And at its very least, if it only affects, according to their numbers, less than 1% of this nation, if we went into herd immunity, that would be 2-point-something million people.
Right.
If it goes up to the number that they're saying, which would be 6%, America would die, I think it's like, the numbers are crazy, but I remember these two numbers, that number is like 7 million people.
Right.
Yes, and you look at the 7 million people.
Every day, that's what you're doing.
So you got to look at that 7 million people being 70% black.
Right. Right.
Interesting.
Right.
So that's the mistake of teetering in this space of anti-vaccination, where you are also promoting that mask isn't doing it, it's a fake virus, social distancing, mask kills people. Someone said that the other day. I was like, Jesus, okay, mask kill people. You're pushing this agenda that would just be letting people out into this world with something that he's also quoted as saying was a plague and airborne and dangerous and kills people and is the worst thing we've ever seen. So I don't understand how we push those messaging out to our people and then say we're trying to save our people. It's like it doesn't even make sense.
No, because these pimps are not trying to save their people. They're trying to increase their wallets. You see? And they're trying to increase their wallets by killing off black people. That's the whole thing. They go in talking about, I'm going to speak up for black people, but they're not speaking up for black people. They're speaking up for a group of people who want you to be destroyed.
Yeah.
You're talking about that. Let's look at it. Now, they're talking about 2 million dead in a herd immunity environment, which means that that's 70% black people dead. That means that you're talking about 1,400,000 black people dead. Now, the director of the CDC got up there and said that you've got an 80% chance of being safer with a mask than you do with the vaccine. But they got these black people talking about you don't have to wear a mask and it's fake, even though they heard from the president's own mouth how dangerous this disease is, how it affects black people and children are the biggest carriers. Yet they sit up here and say you don't need to wear a mask. That's what makes me mad. Why don't you? I'm tired of these people. Why don't you? We say it on the show all the time. Kill yourself. Die. Let other people live. Why don't you die with your BS and then let those other people spend that money that you got from these people who are telling you that you don't need a mask, but it's fake. Really sick of this. No, and I'm like everybody. See, I am a black nationalist, which means that I am pro-black. I am looking to increase the I guess the lifestyle or the standard of living in which black people have grown accustomed to. We cannot increase this because we sit up here and we deal with these people who getting paid for white people to destroy us. It's gotta stop. When are you people going to wake up and stop being pimped by these people?
So I think what I'm going to do, to the degree that it could be helpful to people, is I'm going to do exactly what you said, Jody. I'm going to start looking at some of these social media pages of these folks who are pushing this, and how they're connected, right? Because you can, it's pretty transparent once you get going.
Yeah, look at all their white friends.
Well, but I'm talking about the white people, right? And what they're connected to, and what they post and what they don't post, right? Because the thing I love about Facebook is you could tell when people break up. Right, like when they ended a relationship, because all of a sudden they start posting things about being alone and finding oneself and introspection and so forth and so on. Right, when they're together, they're posting pictures of them and their boo. So you could tell when people are mad at somebody because they post quotes about whatever and memes about whatever. So. You can tell party affiliation based on what they post. So I'm going to spend some time looking at doing some forensics on these folks' pages, and I'm going to report back. So this is going to take me a little bit of time, but I'm going to put that time in. And so Mary Jo and Fred and Jane Smith, I'm gonna come check your pages out, and I'm gonna report back and say, hey, listen, these are anti-vaxxers, right? These are folks who are pushing in the black community, supporting folks who are pushing in the black community, shed some light on this, right? And hopefully we can get very quickly, because it's got to happen quickly, because the longer folks are out there. Like, I had to talk to somebody yesterday. They were in the store and they literally had the mask down to a chin, and the owner of the store wasn't saying anything. And I'm like, yo, dude, you got to pull your mask up. And the fact that it almost became it became physical, right? When literally it is the law right now. Like, you can't go into an establishment with your mask down.
Well, this woman was cussing at me because I said, how come her child doesn't have a mask?
Huh.
My child don't need a mask. No, your child is the biggest spreader of this virus.
Yeah, and so
asystematic.
And so for me, like I said at the beginning, I have a very compromised immune system. And so those folks who are pushing this whole idea of you don't need to wear a mask, I'm thinking to myself, maybe that guy who I'm arguing with listened to you all, and so now he doesn't have a mask on, and now he's putting my life at risk. But you don't want me to be upset about that. You don't want me to say anything about that. You don't want me to comment on it. Come on. So, listen, all of this is rough. It's complicated, and it takes more than 2 hours to kind of unpack it, right? It's like therapy. It's what it is. It's like therapy. But we got to stay focused, guys. Lives are at risk. They're at risk. If you have questions, post them. As Avi said earlier in the feed, Dr. Sharif Inala who's the CEO of the hospital Rutgers. He is willing to answer questions. Like, you know what I would love to do? Maybe I'll talk to him again, and maybe, but nobody called in the last time, right? But maybe
they didn't call in today.
No. But I'm not just no. Yeah, I'm not just talking about those folks. I'm talking about people, because Diane put something up, and I believe this. She said people are scared to believe and scared not to believe. I understand that. But you can't be paralyzed by your fear. It's kind of like, you being on train tracks, and a train is coming, and you're just standing there, right? You're going to get run over. So you're going to have to move. So I'm saying move based on data, on information, right? At least,
like a deer in the headlights.
Yeah, at least come, like, if I can convince, a group of people to come together and to share science with you, at least say that you'll come and you'll listen, you'll weigh in, you'll ask questions. And I'm not saying, hey, listen, I want you to come and I want to indoctrinate you in this. I'm saying, no, come with an open mind, listen, ask questions. Whatever your fears are, lay them out so that we can get to some resolution. But to be silent and to be still is, like you said, like you guys both said, in this herd immunity that's taking place right now, aren't there folks forcing it on us right now by saying, God damn it, I'm not going to wear a mask?
Yeah.
Right? That's what they're doing right now. They're saying, you know what? Whether you like it or not, this is what we're going to do. And then, the strong will survive and the weak will perish. And right now, the weak, because of these underlying conditions, are Black Americans. Vincent, we're at the 12 o'clock hour.
Wow, interesting conversation today. But as always, what we find out is that people who stand up for truth are always persecuted and bullied. Even to the fact of the matter of Jesus Christ was sat there, and he held them before the group, and he said, you can let one person go free. It took Jesus Christ, who they knew was good, and said, crucify him and give us the criminal, the murderer, Barabbas. That still exists today. But what I'm saying to you is this. At this point in time where we're dying disproportionately, It is better that the black community stand on our feet than to die on our knees. Let's stand up to truth. As always, we say, be safe. Keep your distance. Wear your mask. Make sure your children wear their mask. And on behalf of Eric Dawson, Diane, Queen of Media, we say, if it's God's will, we'll be back tomorrow. Stay safe. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Jody, thanks for calling in.